That's what we're going to start with, por qué, because it's important to know that por qué means why when it's a question. And then, what página? I'm going to answer the second part with para qué when I get to para. But we know por qué means why, and then when we answer that question, we use the word because, right? Por qué, blah, blah, blah. And today we're going to build on what we know, so I want to start off identifying what you know. You already know expressions with por qué, which means why, because we're going to look at uses of por that provide explanations, but not necessarily constructed with the word por qué. What's another use of por that we're familiar with? An expression with por. Sam? Por la tarde, por la noche, por la mañana. Muy bien. Anything else with por? ¿Cómo se dice please? Por favor. ¿Cómo se dice favor en español? Favor. So we're going to build off this one as well, because por can be used with explanations, and por is also used when we do a favor for someone. Por ti, por mí. No, because today we're going to look at the context clues and identify from those context clues why we use por, why we use para. And you have to listen carefully because you're going to see that some of the uses are less obvious than others. Okay, so para empezar, this use is pretty obvious. So en sus papeles necesitan copiar por 3 horas. Por 3 horas. So what's this saying? He or she what?
Stuck in traffic for 3 hours.
Right, exactly. For 3 hours. Okay? For 3 hours, for 2 days, for 10 minutes. Anytime we have por followed by a duration of time, like 2 semanas, un minuto, like 5 años, duration of time, we're going to use por.
Should we put that in this one?
Exactamente, sí. Muy bien. Okay, so on your papers under los usos de por, you can write the rule, duration of time. So we're actually working backwards in the way the book presents it. The book gives you the rule and then the example. But I like to start with the example because I want you all to figure out what the rule is, what the context clue is, and why we're using por. So you might want to number, I should have numbered them. With estuvo en tráfico, you might want to number that number 1, and then down at the bottom, you can put a number 1, just so you know what the example corresponds to. But notice you're not just copying por on your paper, you're copying 3 horas. And you might want to highlight 3 horas, because that is what is determining the use of por, for 3 hours. Because por and para can both mean 4. So you have to really not necessarily think about it of what it means in English, but how it's used in Spanish. And so we're going to look at context clues today. Especially with this example. This one's like mucho más difícil. Por no utilizar el navegador GPS, se perdió. Entonces van a copiar por no utilizar en sus papeles. Fácil. Muy fácil. And maybe highlight this word. Utilizar. Utilizar is an infinitive. And we know we can use para plus infinitive. So right now we need to figure out when you use por with an infinitive. And later we're going to identify when you use para with an infinitive. What's this saying? Por no utilizar el navegador GPS se perdió. What happened?
He got lost.
He got lost.
Because he didn't use a GPS for
A GPS, exactamente. Because. ¿Cómo se dice because en español? ¿Por qué? So I want you to build on what you know. You know por qué means because. All we did here is rearrange the word order. That's all we did. So we can say, like Sophie said it, se perdió porque no utilizó navegador GPS. Or we can reverse the order of that sentence and start our sentence with a reason why he got lost. okay? When we rearrange the order, and we don't use porque, and we start off with the explanation, we're going to use por plus an infinitive. Porque needs a conjugated verb because he didn't use versus due to not using. It's kind of like what that's saying. Pregunta? Or no? Okay. So por plus infinitive is used with explanation. So that would be the rule. Explanation. And you can put it in your notes with the uses of por. Porque. I want you to put porque on your paper because when you're doing the superside or you're taking the test, if you can rearrange the word order and use the word porque, you're like, if I just switch this around, I can definitely use porque because there's clearly an explanation going on, then you know it's por. Okay? Okay, vamos a practicar estos conceptos, los usos al fin de la explicación. Pague. This one's very obvious to choose when you do your superside homework and on the test. Pagué $300 por estas llantas. So first, let's focus on the meaning. What's this saying? I what? Paid $300 for these tires. So really, our context clue is money, dinero. If you see money, you know it's por. Okay? Actually, at the beginning, I don't know if you noticed, you probably didn't, but when I was giving you those Post-it notes, I was marking down how much I owe you for, how many pesos I owe you for your participation. Por tu participación. Okay? 10 pesos cada semana por la participación. And this can be any type of exchange of goods. So the rule is called like an exchange of goods. And we don't just use it with money because, you know, in elementary school you trade your Doritos for your classmates' cookies. Okay? So you can always exchange non-monetary things. Trading things, things like that. Stocks, bonds, you can use por. Pregunta, Sam? No? Okay, muy bien. So it's not only always with money. Okay? All right. Uso de por aquí. What's this saying? The picture isn't very clear. Sorry. Doesn't really help. But it's a cell phone stuck in a car seat, a seat in a car. Dejé mi móvil por aquí ayer y hoy no está. So you have roommates and you go grocery shopping and you put your Cheetos in the pantry and you're like, I bought these yesterday and I put these right here and today they're gone. When you make that statement right here in this pantry, in this cabinet, and now they're not here, you're going to use por to say where something was located. ¿Sí? Or no pregunta. Por aquí, por allá, etc. ¿Entienden? Right here. Por aquí. ¿Entienden?
So is it like location or just like current past?
Yeah, you could use location. Location where something is put or left. So another context clue might be the word dejar, which means to leave, or poner, a form of the verb poner as well. That might help as well. Yeah, you could categorize it as location.
If that's gonna mess me up, should I just put
What was the last part? It's
should I
gonna
just put right here then? If that's
right here. Right here, right there. It's kind of like an expression like por la tarde or por favor, por ejemplo. It falls kind of por fin, por eso, por aquí, por allá. Y regresando al verbo que empezó clase, conduzco por la calle King. And this is what you're putting on your paper, por la calle King. What's this saying? I what? Yeah, down King Street. That's not necessarily where I'm going, but that's what I drive through or drive down to get to wherever I'm going. So this is really important to note because we just mentioned location, a place, and La Calle King is a place, or Starbucks is a place, or wherever. But por and para can both be used with places, and here's the difference. When I drive to Kentucky, I go through North Carolina and Tennessee. When I say that in Spanish, I say para ir a Kentucky, which is where I'm going, my destination, I use para. But when I tell you how I get there, I say conduzco por North Carolina y por Tennessee. And when you hear that, you know that my final destination is not North Carolina or Tennessee because I'm using por. Por ejemplo, cuando voy a Mount Pleasant, pasamos por el puente Ravenel. Or cuando vamos a Folly Beach, pasamos por James Island. So when you hear por with places, you know it's a route. Like on the way to class, I always pass by Starbucks. Pasar por, what you go by. So you see verbs like conducir or pasar por to indicate what you go by or drive through to get somewhere. So por is used with to indicate your route. Por is used to indicate the route. And we'll see some examples when we talk about para, how we use para with places to indicate not our route, but our destination. Okay? Muy diferentes. So when you look at these context clues, and we'll practice these later, on the supersite and on the test, you first identify the context clue, and then you narrow it down. Okay, there's a blank with a place. Am I talking about the route, or am I talking about the destination? Those are your order of things. Okay. Le escribo mensajes de texto a mi esposo por móvil todos los días. Por móvil. What's a móvil? A cell phone, right. How else can you communicate with people? You can text them, you can FaceTime them, you could write them a letter. Exactly. Right. There's lots of different ways we communicate. Email. Anytime we communicate with someone by email, by FaceTime, by Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., we're going to use por. Means of communication. And that's not even in the book. They don't even mention that. But if you see a context clue that's some type of communication, you're going to use por. See, Sam?
I was just going to ask if you could be considered the medium of communication.
Sí, exactamente. Sí, por, context clue, teléfono, celular, correo electrónico, etc. Videoconferencia. That's what you're looking for when you do the supersite and the. Also, and this isn't in the book either, en los Estados Unidos se maneja mucho por carro. So what's this saying? In the U.S., they drive a lot by car, right? So we had means of communication, but anytime you see a mode of transportation, you're going to use por. Por tren, por avión, por bus, por Uber, por Lyft, por metro, por bicicleta, por moto. So your context clue is some sort of mode of transportation. It's por. So some of these are really obvious, really black and white, and then some are a little less obvious. So let's look at para. Do we know any expressions with para? Maybe that we use in a couple, the chapter 10 tests and chapter 11 tests. See, Sam, Jake? Se usa para. There is a reason why I am drilling that phrase into your head. Because se usa para is an expression that we use to state what? What it's used for. Right, exactly. Se usa para plus infinitive, or usan, depending on what we're talking about, if it's singular or plural, is used to state purpose. And you don't have to write this down because we're going to see an example here in a second. But I've been drilling that into your head so that when you see that infinitive, because you know you can have infinitives with por, But when you have infinitives with por, it's like por qué. It's an explanation, whereas this is more of a purpose, what it's used for. It can also be treated as in order to. Okay, so let's look at some of the examples with para. Here's para with a place. El taller mecánico. Salgo para. If you see the verb salir, it's probably para when you're just choosing between por and para. What is el taller mecánico? Like the mechanic, the workshop, right? So, is this talking about route or destination? The destination. This is where I'm going. So remember earlier I was talking about if you see a place and it's por, I'm talking about how I get there. Conduzco por North Carolina y Tennessee para ir a Kentucky. Kentucky is my destination. So I use para. So we use para for the destination. So just to reiterate, on the supersite and on the test, if it's blank with a place, you have to decide, is it talking about the routes or is it talking about the destination? Okay, so first you find the context clue, then you identify the rule that applies to that context clue. Place, route versus destination. And it takes lots of practice to identify por. Don't worry, you'll have plenty of practice. Otro ejemplo con para. Esta computadora portátil es para Alicia. So what's this saying? Computadora portátil?
It's like, so it belongs to.
It's for her. Right, exactly. It's for her. Like you got it for her. Like a gift. Or you're giving it to her. So para with a person, because you can have por with people too, para with a person is like the recipient of something. So there's a stack of tests on my desk, and my office mate, like, who are these tests for? ¿Para quiénes son? Estos exámenes son para mi clase de español 201. Or there's pizza left over, or pizza for, a meeting or a club event. Esta pizza es para los estudiantes del Club de Español, or something like that. Or at the end of the semester, especially with y'all, at the end of 202, when you give me your gifts to say thank you. I'm just kidding. I am simply joking. Your gift is like finishing your Spanish requirement. That's your gift to me. But if you were to give a gift to somebody in Spanish on the little note card, maybe you do like some sort of charitable thing where you give gifts, toys for tots or something like that. If the recipient is a Spanish speaker, on the card you're going to write para, Carlos, de, Jackie. Para is how you write to whom is the gift is for, okay? Or whatever, who the gift is for. ¿Entienden? Sí.
¿Cómo se dice from?
De.
Okay.
So para and then de. Okay, but I want to note, because I didn't include it in the PowerPoint and then I remembered yesterday that's important to note. So para plus a person, recipient of a gift. But we'll see here in a second some practice. We use por with people. And I want you to think about por with people based on the word please in Spanish. ¿Cómo se dice please en español? Por favor. ¿Cómo se dice favor en español? Favor. Whenever you do a favor for someone. So like, por me. If you weren't in class, on Monday, somebody took notes for you, or por ti, actually. Or por Jose, or por Juan, or por nosotros. I put, the notes up on Oaks for my students, por mis estudiantes. So I'm doing something for them, an action for someone versus like a noun for someone, okay? All right, chicos. El ejemplo que conocemos muy bien, se usan las llaves para arrancar el carro. How is para being used here again? We talked about this already, but just to reiterate, para, we have an infinitive. Por is used with infinitives like por qué, explanation. Para is used with infinitives to state what? What it's used for, right? in order to start the car. So the purpose. Which is why, Sam, when you asked, or whoever asked, how many questions we have, and the first question that started this chapter was, ¿Para qué usas la tecnología? Para qué can be used in a question. Por qué can be used in a question. Por qué is asking why, but para qué is asking you what for. Diferente. Okay? So you have to decide if the infinitive is talking about purpose or mission, which can be a little tricky. No es para lunes. El examen es para miércoles, ¿no? Para miércoles. La ampliación es para lunes. Para miércoles. So how is para being used here? To state what? An upcoming event, a deadline, a calendar date, upcoming, in the future. Okay? That one's pretty easy because there's really no confusion with por. Okay, here's another use of para with an infinitive. Para ser antiguo. El televisor funciona bien. Para ser antiguo. What do we know about this TV? It's old. But, actually, what else do we know? It works well. Okay, so, para here, our context clue is this infinitive. Okay, we talked about por and para can both be used with infinitives. Por with an infinitive is like an explanation. ¿Por qué? Para can be used to state the purpose, or in this case, a contradiction. And a fancy term for contradiction is a paradox. Para, paradox. Like Manu Ginobili juega para los San Antonio Spurs. Y para ser bajo, juega bien al básquetbol. Normalmente necesitan ser altos, pero para ser bajo, juega bien. So it's a contradiction because he's short, but he's good at basketball. So whenever we have some sort of paradox, contradiction, para plus infinitive. Sí.
So, para, not like pero, también.
You can rearrange it and say it like that. But if it's worded this way, you'll use para. But of course, just like with por qué, you don't have to say por no utilizar. You can say no utilizó or se perdió por qué. It just basically comes down to like word. Okay, y Manu Ginobili juega para los San Antonio Spurs. Yo trabajo para College of Charleston. So employer or, athletes too. It doesn't have to just be employment. And this is basically saying, I work for College of Charleston. So por and para can both mean for, so you cannot translate it into English. You want to look at the context clue. Okay, bueno chicos, ahora vamos a practicar por versus para. Y van a indicar por con los pulgares hacia arriba y para con los pulgares hacia abajo. So por o para. ¿Entienden? Por or para. So how do we do this? Step 1, look at the context clue, identify the rule, choose por or para, okay? I just want to point out too, when in doubt, this is like a 50-50 guess. So this is like really and truly the one time you can go with what sounds right. Because why? It just sounds better this way. I don't recommend doing that initially, but if you're at a dead end and you can't figure it out on the superset or the test, because why? Why do you think that is?
Probably like written or said it.
You've heard it before. So if I give you blank, la tarde, you'd be like, para la tarde, that sounds weird. Por la tarde sounds right, even though we haven't gone over the rules with that. So ultimately, your final step, if you're at a dead end and you can't figure it out, go with what sounds right, because you probably have heard it before. Okay. Por or para. This one's kind of difícil. Buena suerte. Por or para. Por or para.
Wait, which one?
Por or para. Por or para. Okay, so first, I want to break it down, make sure that you're applying the right strategies to choose the best preposition. What's our context clue? What are we looking at? Navegar. Muy bien. Okay, so we can use por or para with an infinitive. How do we decide which one we use? Well, that's with places, so hold that thought. But with infinitives, it's going to be por if you can use like the word porque if you rearrange the word order, if it's an explanation. But you're going to use para with an infinitive if it's a paradox, which this is probably not a paradox, or para with a purpose in order to. Okay, so let me ask you this. ¿Para qué necesitas la conexión inalámbrica? Para navegar en la red. Para, because this is what it's used for. This is what we need it for. Necesitas. Okay? Difícil. Más fácil. Por or para. Por or para. Por or para. Por or para. Mucho mejor, chicas. Muy bien. Por. What was your context clue? La puerta, which is kind of a place, I guess. But this is talking about what? You went through the door. That was your route, not your destination. Your destination is class, but you went through the door. No? If it's your destination, you'd be screwed. Okay. Por or para. This is another hard one. Por or para. Por or para. Y es por. Por. Muy bien. Because why? ¿Por qué? So this is our context clue. Infinitive. When we see infinitives and we're choosing between por and para, what are we trying? What's our rule?
You can use, if you can like replace por with por.
If you can replace por with porque, if you can put porque in there to give an explanation, then it's definitely por. Para is a contradiction, a paradox, or purpose. Para, paradox, purpose, por, explanation. So what happened here? He was nervous, or you're nervous when you're driving. So you, what are los frenos? Yeah, you slammed on the brakes. This is why you did something. Pusiste los frenos porque estabas nervioso. No? So if you can rearrange it with porque, then you know it's por. Por or para. Por or para. What's your context clue? Salud. What's your context clue here? What are we looking at? L. L's what? A person. So a para with a person means what? So the recipient of like something, a noun, a gift. Por plus a person is used when? Yeah, like a favor. No? Por favor. So por or para. Por. Because why? What's going on? What does Jose not have? A printer. So what am I doing? I'm printing something for him. I'm not giving him my printer. I'm not giving him my document or anything. I'm doing him a favor, an action. Otro ejemplo semejante. Por or para. Jackie, pregunta?
But I thought para was for like giving it to someone.
Yes. Like when you're giving something to someone, not doing something for someone.
Oh,
See? Which applies to this one as well. So we have a person again. Am I giving my mother something or am I doing something for her? doing something for her or giving her something? So what did I do? Yesterday I did what? I drove her car. And then I did what? Filled her tank.
So it's an
Por
action.
or para? Por. Por. Because I did something for her. A favor. Un favor. Por favor.
How would that be worded if it said, like, mi mamá, like, received gas in her tank?
I would have to use la gasolina es para mi mamá.
Okay.
Or para el carro de mi mamá. I did the noun. This one's más obvio, lo llené. Por or para. Por or para. Un precio barato. ¿Qué es precio barato? Por or para. What's our context clue here?
Is that money?
Price. Money.
So it would be
Por. Muy bien. Muy bien. ¿Entienden? Okay. Más difícil. Más difícil. Menos obvio. Because what? What's our context clue? An infinitive, right? So what are the differences between por and para with infinitives? Por or para. Por or para. Yes, para. Because why?
It's a
Paradox, right? Because why? What do we know? What's this word? It's new, but it doesn't work. That is a paradox. Para. ¿Entienden? Por or para. This is lunes. This one should be más fácil. Por or para. Por or para. Es para because why? That's why we're practicing.
upcoming event.
Upcoming event. A deadline, a date coming up. Okay, Chief.